Ignition sequence start.
Good morning. This is a view of Mission Control Houston at NASA's Johnson Space Center. It's the place where a team of specialists is on duty around the clock for more than 20 years straight now, working with the astronauts and cosmonauts on the International Space Station to advance a worldwide mission of scientific discovery and space exploration. Commander Sergei Ryzhikov and his American, Russian, and Japanese crewmates are back at work after some time off for the holidays. They're conducting scientific experiments, taking care of their home on orbit, and supporting the departure of a couple of cargo vehicles.
Houston Station on Space to Ground.
Welcome to Space to Ground and Happy New Year. I'm Leah Cheshire. This week, a cargo spacecraft departed the orbiting laboratory while another prepares to do the same. On Wednesday, January 6th, Northrop Grumman's Cygnus resupply spacecraft departed after more than 3 months on board. This 14th resupply mission from the company launched on October 2nd, 2020, arriving at the station October 5th and delivering nearly 8,000 pounds of crew supplies, hardware, research experiments, and more. After unloading the precious cargo, astronauts filled Cygnus with trash to burn up with the vehicle upon its fiery re-entry into Earth's atmosphere after completing its secondary mission in orbit over the next several weeks. SpaceX's Cargo Dragon will be the next departure from the space station, scheduled to undock for a splashdown in the Atlantic Ocean on January 11th. You can watch undocking on the agency's website. While I personally can't keep a cactus alive, crew members are proving yet again that they can grow plants in space. Future long-duration missions to the Moon or Mars will require astronauts to grow their own food, a capability being tested aboard the International Space Station with the Veggie experiment. This week, astronauts installed the root mat and small plant pillows needed to begin growing extra dwarf pak choi, amara mustard, and red romaine lettuce as part of the Veg 3 investigation. As the plants grow, crew members will take photos for ground analysis on plant growth rates and health. These plants will be harvested on orbit and samples will be returned to Earth for testing. Results from this experiment could also benefit agricultural and biomass production efforts on Earth by contributing to basic research on plant cultivation. That'll do it for us this week on Space to Ground. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week.
In more than 20 years of continuous human presence on the International Space Station, more than 3,000 scientific experiments have been conducted. Just in 2020, that included everything from growing radishes in microgravity to capturing 360-degree video footage of life aboard the station to monitoring our planet. Have a look at some of the highlights of the past year of research that is benefiting people on Earth while helping prepare us to explore farther into space. The International Space Station is well known as an orbiting laboratory, but its mission also includes preparing us for future exploration, improving life on Earth, and encouraging commercialization of space. In that area, one of its great successes is a product called CubeSats.
Think of the International Space Station, and most likely you imagine an orbiting laboratory where scientists observe how plants, materials, and humans react to microgravity conditions. But during the past decade, the station has also served a very different role, that of being a business incubator. And this is one of its star products, the CubeSat. The CubeSat is one of many types of satellites now found in space. It is one of the smallest. One unit is a compact 10 by 10 by 10 centimeter cube and is commonly referred to as 1U. And it can be deployed for a fraction of what its larger cousins cost. Early small satellites launched from the station were literally thrown into space by Russian cosmonauts. In 2012, crew members began utilizing the airlock in the Japanese Kibo module to deploy up to 6U of CubeSats per airlock cycle. And not long after, the American company NanoRacks built and began operating an even more robust deployer on the station, capable of launching up to 48U per cycle. That changed everything. Mike Reed is the manager of Space Station Business and Economic Development at Johnson Space Center. He notes how one of NanoRacks' first customers, Planet, leveraged the new launch capabilities aboard the space station. Planet wanted to take high-resolution photos of Earth. While you can take pictures from the space station, your coverage is limited by the station's orbit. With multiple CubeSats, however, you can position them to cover almost any point on Earth. In a relatively short time, Planet deployed several generations of CubeSats from the space station, proving the viability of their technology approach and their business model. With these successes, Planet quickly expanded to an operational fleet of over 150 satellites deployed using commercial launch providers. This fleet gives them the ability to image the entire Earth's landmass every day. Planet's imagery is now in high demand by companies and governments who use this big data in the fields of agriculture, forestry and land use, mapping, and disaster response. Within a decade, the company has grown from a true startup to employing nearly 500 people. Multiple companies are now building small launch vehicles specifically to deploy CubeSats and other small satellites into low Earth orbit, for use in a variety of ways for companies as well as students and nonprofit organizations. CubeSats are being used to provide internet services to even the most remote regions of the planet. They're helping build better weather and climate models to improve weather forecasting. They're enabling text messaging for your phone around the globe, even without a cell signal. CubeSats are also leaving the planet. The first and second interplanetary CubeSats accompanied NASA's InSight lander on its recent mission to Mars, relaying data about the spacecraft as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Some CubeSat missions will serve as pathfinders to help map the way for the Artemis missions to the Moon, and 13 CubeSats will launch on the first mission, Artemis 1. Reed concludes with this observation. Today, more and more, a single large and expensive satellite is being replaced by one of the newest members of the satellite portfolio, a flock of small, less expensive, yet very powerful CubeSats. Affordable access to space has broadened the station's capabilities in a way that, frankly, was never envisioned. However, that access has enabled CubeSats to become a sustained commercial success, contributing significantly to the growing space marketplace. For more science and research from the International Space Station, go to www.nasa.gov/ISS-science. To discover more about the space on, around, and beyond our planet, visit science.nasa.gov.
The job of an astronaut on the International Space Station involves working as a laboratory assistant for researchers who are doing science in space, as well as doing maintenance to keep the station operating safely and efficiently. But they also have to keep themselves in good shape so they can do all that other work. In this demonstration video, astronaut Joe Acaba talks about the value of exercise in orbit.
Hey there, my name is Joe Acaba, and I'm living and working on the International Space Station as part of Expedition 53. One of the best parts about living on the space station is being able to float. Just like you walk from place to place throughout your day, we float from place to place throughout our day. However, we have learned that the same thing that allows us to float, microgravity, is hard on our bodies over time. Our muscles and bones are made of millions of tiny units called cells, and these cells can have problems in microgravity. Up here on the station, bones and muscles no longer have to support the weight of our bodies, so they get weaker. Astronauts could develop something called muscle atrophy, where our muscles become weak from lack of use. Each bone in your body is made of cells too. A healthy bone has more density than an unhealthy bone. Weakened bones can lead to a disease called osteoporosis. Fortunately, our scientists at NASA have figured out one way to keep astronauts healthy and strong. It's called exercise. Let's take a look at how astronauts exercise in space. This machine here is the Advanced Resistive Exercise Device, or we call it ARED. It simulates free weight exercises in normal gravity to work all the major muscle groups. ARED's primary goal is to maintain our muscle strength and mass so that we have less of a recovery period when we land back on Earth. All right, so there's looking at lifting. But what about a little cardio? We have a treadmill for that. Let's check it out. Staying physically active helps both astronauts in space and humans on the ground to stay healthy. And it prevents muscle atrophy and osteoporosis. Now you can try the activity connected to this video to learn more about muscle and bone cells. I'm Joe Acaba, and I hope you enjoyed learning about exercise on the International Space Station. We'll see you next time.
Four of these Expedition 64 crew members arrived at the station in November on the SpaceX Crew Dragon Resilience on what is the first operational mission of that commercial vehicle. So what does that mean? And what are these astronauts doing in space? And how long will they be there? I know, a lot of questions. Who better than the crew members themselves to answer those questions and more?
I'm Victor Glover, NASA astronaut, Navy commander.
I'm Dr. Shannon Walker, NASA astronaut.
My name is Soichi Noguchi from Japan.
Hi, I'm Colonel Mike Hopkins, United States Air Force and NASA astronaut. I will be the commander on NASA and SpaceX's Crew 1 mission to the International Space Station.
Crew 1 is the designator for the first operational mission of the SpaceX Crew Dragon. So it's a new vehicle.
We are starting the phase where we are flying astronauts. NASA is flying astronauts to the International Space Station on commercial crew vehicles.
We're going to go up and we're going to stay for the full long duration from 6 to 7 months long.
And one thing that's very different about our flight versus Doug and Bob's is we'll have 4 people. How do 4 people live and operate on such a vehicle?
We want to get our Crew Dragon spacecraft to the space station and home safely. Flying the spaceship is one piece. There's also the very important mission of being on the International Space Station.
And of course, once I arrive on the space station, I'll be a board engineer and do lots of science and maintenance and spacewalks, robotics, all kinds of work.
And then at the end of our mission, our stay on ISS, I'll command the vehicle and bring us back home and land, and then at that point it's all done. Well, actually, it's not all done. Once you get back from the mission, you have a long post-flight period. you go through the day-to-day training, the day-to-day operations to get ready for it.
There's the basic competencies, I guess, flying T-38s, the high-performance jet flying that we do, the NBL training, the diving in the full pressure suit, the space suit, to train for spacewalks, robotics training, and I'm still taking Russian classes.
The science payloads, and also the maintenance tasks, and also some of the assembly tasks remain on the space station.
How to handle emergencies on the space station, to how you fly the Crew Dragon spacecraft.
We've been going out to SpaceX and working with them from a training standpoint as well as from a development and verification and testing standpoint.
Also, in many ways, having trained in spacecraft and for spaceflight all over the world, training is training, and it's all about the same. You start off with theoretical work and then you move into the practical inside your spacecraft.
You know, it's a great honor, first and foremost, and looking at all their experience, it makes me, one, comfortable that there's so much experience and so many ways that I can learn from them, but at the same time, I want to be ready and able to contribute.
My kids, my wife have said, "You don't go to work anymore, do you?" It's like you go and just play all day, and that's what it feels like when you come here to JSC and you get to train. And it's much more serious than that, right? It has real consequences. But at the same time, I just absolutely love it.
To be able to fly a new spacecraft to our home of almost 2 decades in low Earth orbit is just an amazing accomplishment.
Americans really should be proud of this achievement. But for the rest of the 7.4 billion people, I will open the door for you. This is an international corporation, and all the other people around the world have a chance to ride on this Crew Dragon. So this is a new era.
I think it is just tremendously exciting and fascinating to know that kids are growing up today that have always had people living in space and always had the countries working together for science and engineering objectives.
All for one, crew one for all.
The men and women who live and work on the International Space Station take thousands of photographs of their home planet every year. Last month, we asked the folks at the Earth Science and Remote Sensing Unit at NASA's Johnson Space Center for a few of their favorite of those pictures from 2020. Behold, here are the top 20 from 20. When we look at those still photographs, you and I have to provide our own narration. But the astronauts who have been to the International Space Station do a better job when they fill in the feelings they had when they took those pictures, or the first time they looked out a window down at planet Earth. For former astronaut Alvin Drew, it was a reminder that we need to keep pushing the boundaries of exploration.
How is the quality of the TV?
Oh, it's beautiful, Mike. It really is.
I'm in first grade and I'm watching Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin dancing around like every other kid who's out there watching this. They want to go do this. This is the coolest thing ever. And I remember asking my dad, what kind of job do I need to have growing up that I can make enough money that I can go fly to the moon? And he goes, well, there's a job out there called being an astronaut. And if you are that, they will pay you to go to the moon. They're going to pay me to go to the moon. That's it. I've made my career decision. I'm going to go be an astronaut. I did not think the experience of spaceflight would change me. I hear about these people going having this overview effect, and they come back and like, what am I going to go experience out there that's going to change who I am? But it made me think about a lot of things. And so for the first part, we all had that part where you're seeing the Earth, and you see yourself next to the Earth, and you feel very tiny next to the Earth. Then you turn the other way, and the Earth seems very tiny compared to the cosmos out there. And so you feel like you're 2 orders of magnitude down in terms of the size of things out there. All of life, all of the history of life, all of your life, and everybody you know is in this little tiny membrane of air that sits on top of this planet. And beyond that membrane of air is this abyss of space. It's just, there's nothing life-giving about it. And that's it. That's all that separates you. And it makes you feel like we're in a very tiny spot out here. As big as the Earth seems, it seems suddenly very, very finite. One of the things that got me one day, we had some time off, and I wanted to go get some pictures of items that I'd flown up for other people out there. And so I get out there and I crank open all the different panels on the cupola window, and just by dumb luck, we were flying down the spine of New Zealand. So you've got this emerald green island with all the mountains, and you've got the ocean out there as the backdrop for all these photos. And it almost made me forget to take the pictures because I was too busy gawking at New Zealand out of the cupola as we went over it. Going on my very first spacewalk, I looked down, and that was my first mistake because this was the Amazon rainforest beneath me. It's February, I guess it's summertime in the southern hemisphere, so I could see all the way down to the river itself and all the dark green lush jungles, the brown river and all the estuaries flowing into it. I can see this muddy delta going out into the Atlantic Ocean, and I could see the gray and snow-capped peaks of the Andes Mountains all out to the west. And so despite my best intentions, Mother Nature was saying, you will not ignore me, you must pay attention. And I'm just sitting there just gobsmacked looking at this thing and trying hard to tear myself away. Fortunately, my lead spacewalker, Steve, he just sat there and said, just take your time and take the scene, and you will never see something like this again, ever, so you might as well get the experience now. My advice for humanity is, this is a great place to start, but don't stick around here very long. We have opportunities out there. I forget who it was who said, if humankind was meant to explore the universe, God would have given us a moon. We need to take advantage of that, use that as a leaping pad to get off into other places. Someday we're going to need to be from space and not going out there, simply going into it.
If you'd like to see much more of that, we have a half-hour special program available on YouTube now that showcases our astronauts' journey to the International Space Station as they explore the life-changing experience of an orbital perspective. Search for Down to Earth, the Astronaut's Perspective. Okay, time for one more quick one. Thanks to the COVID-19 virus, this past New Year's Eve was different for most people, and that includes most of the members of the International Space Station's Expedition 64 crew, who created their own version of a New Year's Eve tradition.
Hello, Planet Earth. I'm NASA's Kate Rubens, along with my Expedition 64 crewmates aboard the International Space Station. We wanted to take a moment to wish all of you a very happy New Year.
One of the most famous New Year's Eve traditions is watching the ball drop in Times Square in New York City.
As many of us celebrate the new year from home this year, we brought this famous tradition to space to share with you.
Since you are in zero gravity, ours have a special twist.
We hope this inspires you to celebrate in your own way. 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year!
If you want another look at any of these stories we featured today, you can always find them at YouTube and Facebook at those particular addresses right there on the screen. And if you're looking for good conversation about human spaceflight, be sure to check out Houston, We Have a Podcast, our weekly show talking to folks involved in all areas of space exploration. Today, Gary Jordan continues our Mars Monthly series in a talk with planetary geologist Paul Niles to dig into the details of what makes Mars a desirable destination for exploration, what we can do there, and what we hope to learn from nosing around. Go to nasa.gov/podcasts for this week's episode and all the previous episodes. In fact, the full library of all the NASA podcasts are there. They're also on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and SoundCloud.